Hey everyone, welcome back to the Art2Life podcast. I am with my best friend in the world. He's from Los Angeles, Noah Woods, but he's up in my studio in Sausalito. We're making art today. We're talking about all kinds of things, catching up, and we're working on our sketchbooks and we're just doing stuff. But what we're talking about, or what we started to talk about, we thought, oh my God, let's just record this. This is so juicy, this is so good. This is all about, we're talking about clarity and the need to get clarity, you know, in your life, in your work, what happens when you do, how you keep it, how you lose it. And I just think it's a fascinating subject and something that I've had recent, epiphanies around, and I think both of us have a lot to say about this. So Noah, thanks for being here. And what are we going to make today, first and foremost? What are you doing? You got all kinds of pieces.
We're going to make some magic, but I just want to say thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're my only guest that's been here 3 times.
And rightfully so. But what a treat. Seriously,
yeah.
What a treat. What a treat. What are you making today?
Well,
I'm making a veal scallopini.
Yeah, I'm making a salad on my sketchbook. I'm just going to start.
It should have been the other way around since I'm the vegan and you're not. So.
Yeah, right. Okay, so let's just dive into this. Clarity. What does that mean to you? Why would anyone care about that who's listening? What about this?
Oh, I think so many people who do listen, for instance, to your podcast, are always searching for some ounce of clarity in their life, in their work, in how they move through the world. But I think that questions come up. And I think also because when you are innately an artist, anywhere on the scale, if you're just starting
right.
or you're so many years in, I think, and I've thought this for a long time, if you're an artist, I think that you're always raising questions. And because when you're raising questions, it's so natural that a lack of clarity starts to come up.
Yes. Yeah, that's a problem, right? I mean, it's not a problem, but inherent in with just being the thing, being the artist, you're always pulled, your soul's always pulling you to the unknown. That's where all the juice is, right?
Yes.
So it's not like you figure this out. Yeah, that's a great. You don't get to figure it out and be kind of done. Like, oh, I got clarity, now I'm going. You get clarity, but then that just in time gives way to a new vagueness, something else obscured.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like we're plumbers. My grandfather, my paternal grandfather was a plumber. There's only so many ways to screw the pipes in together and to connect it to where the water comes out. There's a set amount of ways to do it. We're in a world where the opportunity to make things happen is boundless. And so that adds to it as well. The curiosity to see what's possible, the curiosity to see what's possible is such a driving force.
Is that because there's all these things like Chat GPT and all these things that are like it's infinite. We can find out everything we want to know. We got, how is the technology now that provides endless answers helping us become more clear, or is it?
Well, it might be, but you're talking about something that's cerebral versus something that is. It could be cerebral, but it's also from the heart, from the soul. Which I wouldn't necessarily open Encyclopedia Britannica open to get the answer to my soul.
Uh-huh.
So I think that the force of my brain racing with other ideas and my heart and soul wanting to know other things, partly from knowing that there's other things that I want to make, there's other things that I want to see the outcome of. After doing something for a while, as you know, at the beginning of our careers, I worked a certain way,
Yeah.
and then I completely changed, working under a new way, and that's because I realize now I needed to know another way.
Or another, yeah, it's like when the expression doesn't match the creature, like you got ahead and then your expression stayed behind and it wasn't current with the new version of you and you had to upgrade.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yes, I relate to that very much.
Yeah.
And I'm going through that again.
You are?
Yeah.
Oh.
The questions have been raised.
Uh-huh.
And I'm trying to figure out, say that again, the expression?
Well, yeah, who you are and who you're becoming can get ahead of your expression, right? So it no longer fits. Now, you can also, your expression can be ahead of you because you're not ready to accept it. I remember, well, it's that painting over there in the corner.
Right.
I made that many years ago, and I friggin' loved it. But I had and I did it, it was like an hour and a half, and it was completely different than anything I'd ever done.
Right.
And this gallerist came by, and she loved it, and I didn't understand why it was so good. I didn't trust it because it was a one-off. I felt like, how could I make something that good in an hour and a half? Even though I liked it, I didn't understand it. I understand it now, but at the time, I had this belief that I had to spend 15 hours on a painting to make something, and I had to put all this time in it to make it worth something. So that was me being behind the art.
Got it.
Right?
And as you and I were just talking today, time is not the important factor of determining what makes a particular painting or image work. As we were talking about Matisse doing 2-minute drawings of faces that are masterpieces, 2 minutes. And then like Bryce Martin, you'll see on his works are labeled like 1993 to 1997.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, they're gigantic. I mean, sometimes they're 14 feet long, but still, you're like, wow, why did that take, 5 years? But it doesn't matter. What matters is that the artist got to a point of saying, yes, this is where I wanted to be. It doesn't matter how long it took to get to that point. If you're blessed with the time that you got to that point, what a beautiful place to be.
Yeah. But I think there's something about this. When you're in congruence with what it is you're making and who you are, that is, it's the best feeling in the world. When you make something, and it's temporary, right? You make something, and you don't actually, you love it. That moment's great, and it feels like, okay, that is a stand-in for me, pretty good. You can have a show like that. And a couple pieces might be that. And then, 6 months later, you're kind of tired of everything. But at the time, it's kind of cool.
When have you had moments of moving from clarity to non-clarity, back to clarity? I know there have been many for both of us.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great question. I think things can happen in a life, and I remember, a really hard patch for me, and I've been very fortunate, and I've had a pretty blessed life. I had parents that loved me. I had parents that, my mom went to work later in her life, and she paid for me to go to art center. I mean, that was amazing. It was an incredible art school. I had a dad that was encouraging of me to go to art school.
Right.
I had support. And then I got out of art school and I could basically support myself, doing illustration and doing all the things and kids and all that. And everything was pretty, ridiculously good. I was able to do kind of what I liked, sort of. I was sometimes not that happy doing illustration, but then, God, in 2008 or whatever, when the whole economy fell apart and we had a Madoff type thing and I lost all the money
Right.
and all, that was so, my relationship fell apart. I lost my way. I lost my self-worth. And with that went my confidence or my trusting my spider sense of what I should do for the first time in my life. It's like, how could this, and so that's when I lost clarity.
Right.
Yeah. It's so interesting.
I remember.
Yeah.
But
you remember that?
I remember,
Yeah.
of course.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
Nick, you eventually rose from it. You rose from it like a phoenix. You really did.
Yeah, I mean, it was the way I found my way back was through this, doing just what we're doing now.
Yeah.
I can't be crazy if I made this, or this feels kind of exciting, and the rest of my life's a train wreck, but this right here, I know how to do this. It was so confirming. Yeah. And so, but clarity, it's hard for me to separate art and life. So I think that was a perfect example. It became my life. I think I doubled down on art making was always something I did. I was like the kid in high school that was good at it. I got attention for it. I think that's why I kind of kept going with it. We all want to be good at something when we're in elementary school,
Right.
I couldn't do sports very well. But I think that experience gave me complete confusion and lost my way.
Right.
But I also doubled down onto art in a massive way. I got clear really fast about what art was capable of doing, which is what Art2Life is.
Yeah, but also what I remember is that you also really started to look into yourself, and you started to do some personal investigation into yourself, then more deeper than you usually do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And when you have a train wreck, it's the easiest thing to do, and the almost natural thing to do is sort of look outside of yourself and say, well, the economy did this, or these things happened and has nothing to do with me. But the growth was understanding what part of that I was responsible for, that's a hard one, to own those things and to really see it and adjust and take stock of how you want to be and how you want to be different and how did, all the things. And so yeah, we gain clarity from the missteps.
Yeah. I mean, we both have walked through some serious mud.
What were some of yours? What was your big ones? What were some big ones for you? I'm trying to remember. I remember.
I'm so glad you can't think of any.
No, I know you had some.
I'm so glad I'm such a pristine human being to you.
Right. Well, you're not afraid of therapy. I know that.
No, I started when I was 28, and tried it out then, and stuck with somebody, and then tried someone else. And
wait, I thought you were still with that same person that you started with.
No, there were two people I tried first, and then I was introduced to this. I was given the number of this person, and it was just one of those things where, okay, I can really work with this person. And when I say that I've been talking with her for well over 30 years now, it hasn't been like a weekly thing. There were breaks in between where I needed just to, time by myself, not to be in therapy. So there was like 5 years that I wasn't doing it. There was 7 years I wasn't doing it.
And was it, would you say that was you were trying to get clear?
Yeah, about a lot.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? I mean, that's what we're doing in therapy,
Well, your amazing adventure of Art2Life and life to art and back, this was that in some form, because it wasn't just about one thing. It was just really about a life. And I think told you recently that, I had always been looking for, well, okay, this sounds really morbid, but and I'm not even like a New Yorker, so my apologies to all New Yorkers, but this sounds very New Yorkish, but ever since I was a little kid, I was reading the obituaries. And this sounds like an older person, a much older person, but I loved reading obituaries, not for...
As a little kid?
I started reading them like when I was 8 because on the front page of the Los Angeles Times were always the bigger obituaries, and and my dad and I would usually have breakfast together. I would get up really early, and while the rest of the family was sleeping, and he'd be reading business and sports, and I would first go to the obituaries, and the entertainment section, which also had stuff about art. But I'll tell you what the obituaries provided. And what I was hungry for. It was how did that person end up on the front page? Because they must have done something really extraordinary to end up on the front page.
Wait, the front page? I thought they just died and they get put in the paper.
No, I'm not talking about the obituaries where everybody's listed. I'm talking about
the
people...
featured obituary people.
Yes, people who had accomplished something.
So,
and occasionally it was, it wasn't always for the most positive reason that they ended up there. But I think I was looking for guidance on how to have a life. And as I said before, I was in...
so mature.
I had my moments.
Wow.
So I think I was in search of a Sherpa or a concierge to take me by the hand and say, this is how you do it. Here's the map to the rest of your life.
Did you feel like you could ask your dad? I mean, your dad was an artist, right?
Yeah, I mean, he was a doctor, but he could have made a living as a painter.
He was an artist. Oh my God.
I'm sorry, I've known you for 40 years.
A dentist.
He was a dentist.
That's right. You have the perfect teeth.
Hi, nice to meet you. How are you? What's your name? I'm sorry, it's the first time we're meeting each other.
Well, I forgot, but then every time I look at you, there's your smile. It's so perfect.
He had nothing to do with it. He just was helping and make me be born. But he...
I'm getting ahead of you. Keep working. You got to be able to talk and make art at the same time.
But he was an extraordinary painter. He was into realism, but as he got older, he got into making wax sculptures that he would turn into incredible bronze sculptures.
Oh my God, wow.
And then he got older. He was doing first female nudes, and then he and I started talking about abstraction. And as he got older and his eyesight wasn't so good, and I said, abstraction would really allow you to be more free form without, needing to be so into the details. And he embraced that full on.
Really?
Oh,
He left sculpture and went into...
No, other way around. He was painting and then went into sculpture. And one day I was out to lunch with him, and I was doodling while we were talking, kind of like what you and I are doing at this very moment. And I made this image that almost looks like an ampersand. And at the end of lunch, he said, "Could I have that sketch?" And I said, "Sure, of course." And then that holiday, for my holiday gift, he had turned it into a bronze sculpture.
No way.
I opened up a box, and he's like, "There's your sketch." And it was this bronze sculpture on a marble base.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
And the tears just started.
Really?
I was like, "What are you doing? You're kidding me." Oh my God. I mean,
so sweet.
I just completely lost it. I was like, this is too much. And so anyway, he was quite extraordinary in his sculptures. I mean, really extraordinary. But
he wasn't the guy to go to, the go-to guy for like, "Dad, where am I going?"
No, he was that guy. Both my parents were. Mm-hmm. Were both of your parents?
Sort of. I mean, my dad, he believed in certain things and was very opinionated about it. But he was, both my parents were from England, and
Right.
they weren't the most expressive emotionally. And that was hard for me. And they were amazing, but I didn't learn that important thing from them. I kind of went outside of that and found
Right.
how to be more fully expressed through my girlfriend and
Right.
and just other people and who I hung out with. And
If I had known you then, I would. There was a lot of expression in our house.
was there?
Yes.
Yeah.
You met my mom.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I met your mom and dad.
Uh-huh.
I understand.
Yeah, yeah.
And same with my mom's parents. They were massively expressive people. And so, I mean, at the dinner table, when my mom's parents were over, I mean, you really had to speak up to be heard because people were talking and giving their opinions.
And you had to like elbow your way in.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Did you find like, did that muddle you? I mean, we're talking about clarity, about, finding your way. You were reading obituaries to try to kind of figure it out. What was sort of some of the takeaways?
well, I learned that Jack Kerouac was no longer on the road and that Judy Garland was now somewhere over the rainbow. And I mean, these were some of the many obituaries that I read. And so it just showed me possibilities of a life. When I read David Hockney's memoir, David Hockney by David Hockney, that showed me, possibilities. I remember going to the bookstore out where we lived as a kid, and somewhere between Alfred Hitchcock and Houdini was this memoir by David Hockney, and it showed me what a life could be as an artist, as a person, having a life.
What did he say? Like, what was it?
It was in examples of his friends, of examples of his total exploration of that he could explore anything. We began talking about clarity. Mm-hmm. When you look at his body of work, we never see the unclear moments. I don't know if he has had unclear moments.
Yeah, that's a good point, right.
Because, when we look at books, we don't usually...
We don't see David Hockney on a bad day, What are you doing? He did the... Give it up,
That would be a great book. A culmination of David Hockney on a bad day.
Yeah, totally.
All of David's bad work, which there is none in existence, because I don't know if he knows how to do it.
Yeah, right.
He does not know how to make a bad painting. But anyway, I think that's partly why I read memoirs and biographies.
Yeah, and I did too, actually. Yeah.
Who do you remember reading?
Well, I remember, Steve Jobs is the one that comes to mind just more in the last 10 years,
Yeah. Why did that book impact you so much?
Well, it was just, it's just the sheer tenacity of vision, it's not that when you have the vision or the dream, it's not that it's like so clear. I mean, it's that you're clear about moving towards it and you're willing to stand up and put a stake in the ground. That's what makes it clear. That's what clarity, it's not like you make something clear by embodying it, by remembering it, by seeing it again and again and reminding yourself of, oh, that's right, that's what I'm doing. This is what I want my art to be like. I want to live a creative life like, this was how it was with those destination workshops. I wanted a certain thing. I wanted a certain experience. I wanted to be in exotic places. I wanted to do art with friends. I wanted, and it was like this vision, and I didn't know if it was possible necessarily, but I knew what I wanted. And you get clarity. I guess the point is that you get clarity by the actual making of the thing.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Because you're not going to get clarity just by sitting in a chair thinking about it. You just got to get in there and do. You have to. You have to start.
Yeah.
And it might take you deep and dark someplace, but eventually, hopefully, you begin to see some light somewhere. And I think that's.
But don't you? I mean, you're going to. I mean, you're going to. It's not like you get lucky. I mean, if you spend the time looking, you will gain clarity. You will, right? I mean, that sounds so. If you spend enough time, maybe you'll come out of it. But I mean, I think it's a for sure thing, don't you? Or
no,
maybe
I
not?
don't. I think it's the hope. I think it's the hope, the dream, the goal. But you mentioned Steve Jobs, and Steve Jobs gave the graduating speech that went viral from Stanford.
Yes.
And I think one of the reasons that it went viral was because he talked about the trajectory of his life and that it wasn't this.
Yes.
He told the graduates that it was more this. And he talked about, being at Apple, being fired at Apple, having cancer, that it wasn't this just glorious ride straight up, that he had it all figured out.
Yeah, and that I remember a big takeaway for me was that we can be really clear and really have understanding when we look back and connect the dots. But damn, when you're back in the start of this thing, you can't know. But it makes so much sense when we look back. It's like, well, of course. And when we do this, we always talk about figures in history and we kind of summarize their lives. And it's like, well, yeah, of course, Monet, Georgia O'Keeffe, she left New York City and she went to Santa Fe. And of course her work got more like that. And it was more open and spacious. And she's made the small things big. But I bet to her it was like, what the hell am I doing? Loading the sedan with my art supplies and driving out to the desert. It's so interesting. I mean, the clarity isn't clear looking forward. It's just more clear looking backwards, I think.
Have there been artist memoirs or biographies that you read where they talked about, where you remember the struggles that they went through?
I'm trying to think of who would be a good example of that. I mean, I'm the same way. I love the stories of what people do, how they answer what they don't know, and they do something like that. That's what's so interesting to me. Like, I remember going into fine art, and it was at the time when the whole economy fell apart, and it was not a good time to go into anything. It was just the worst. But everything else didn't work. Yeah, so I just ended up doing this thing, and now I look back, and it was the perfect time. But at the time, it didn't feel. It wasn't. It just seemed like insane.
But that's been who you have been all these 40 years I've known you. You've been somebody who's taken it. You take chances. This goes back to clarity because you are always you've been in search of some form of clarity and looking for answers and what else can you do? What else is possible? And it doesn't matter if the world is in a recession. That doesn't stop or inspire inspiration and creativity. Something's internally going on, and it's got to come out, and you're needing to deal with it. And you're needing to face it.
I can look back, and that makes sense now, but I remember at the time it just seemed like crazy. Have you done like, okay, I think I'm clear, and I'm gonna go for this thing, and it's like wrong,
Yeah, a number of times.
What was that?
Well, I mean, I've had, you and I both have dipped our toes into children's book publishing, and I remember just a couple of them that I went full on out.
Yeah, I remember
putting stuff together, and even though there was a wonderful success of a couple, but there were many more that didn't happen, but I put everything into it, and it was, I don't know. I don't know if it's in my DNA or what, but if something doesn't work out, I've always been like, okay,
Yeah.
let's keep going.
Right.
What's next?
How do you stop yourself from feeling like, well, that was a fail, and what am I going to, it's like you get 3 of those in a row and, like.
I think, well, maybe partly because we've had the blessing of having known some successes.
Yeah, I mean, it totally helps to have that.
How could that possibly not help?
Right.
When you know that you've succeeded a couple times in your life, when you have that you're sitting under, even if you have 3 consecutive things that don't work out, you still know that at least you did once.
Yeah.
At least once.
Yeah.
And how does that has not, that hasn't, that's only reminded me, well, listen, you figured out something that so many people haven't been able to have an opportunity to do. And how do you not use that as a positive? How do you not let that be a reminder to yourself that you've been able to figure something out? It doesn't even have to be something creative.
Right.
It could be in any aspect of your life as a reminder of something that worked for you, something where you had a welcoming outcome. So even though things may not work out and then not work out again, I just think it's been important for me to remember the times that it has.
Yeah.
And when I do that, I don't get tripped up by somebody saying no.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I always wanted to like have a sellout art show. That was like my fantasy, and I think I kind of did at one of the shows I did with Caldwell Snyder years back, and it was so cool. And I remember having a show at the Gallatin River Gallery in Big Sky, Montana. I flew out. It was a friggin' rainstorm, snowstorm, and I worked on all these paintings. And
I remember this.
Yeah, and
you called me.
Nobody came. Nobody. I mean, it was.
Was it partly though because there was a storm or something?
Yeah, but it's still the feeling of sitting with all your work and you're making small talk with the director, and she was my friend Julie. She was amazing, and it was sort of a joke, but I remember thinking, well, this will be good. You get these great stories, like I've had a sold out show. I know what it feels like to just be like, oh, sorry, like that's the home run. But I also know what it's like to just complete, like, it's a joke, right? And I think there's some value in that, that it isn't really that important, neither outcome. The important thing is to move towards the thing that you're chasing. What is the outcome I'm after?
Right.
What is it that I want? And what are the things? And this is how I'm thinking about it now, more and more, like, what do I want? What do I want to have happen? Thinking about that, spending time with that idea, talking about it, which is actually a really good strategy for getting clarity, I think, is talking to people who understand you,
right.
And, just like what we're doing. But what are the things that I can do? What are the daily things I can do? What are the things, that I would do now that if I go forward in the future that would make the outcome that I'm dreaming about inevitable? That of course, I made, it's like I can imagine, let's say I want to do, giant paintings and being in a museum. Well, that's not going to happen, but I can imagine.
Wait, why wouldn't it happen?
Well, I mean, that's a big step. Let's say I want to do, a massive solo show in the Guggenheim or whatever. What would I be doing? Well, I'd be sharing my art more. I would get in front of those gatekeepers. I'd be playing on that stage. I'd be making art that's so friggin' good. I think this is, for me, how I get clarity, is that I figure out where the deficiencies are and how I need to be in order for that outcome to actually happen. That it's inevitable. That it's like, well, of course, like I'm going to reach out. I don't know anyone in that world, so maybe I'm making all this up. Maybe I would get to know the people that are in that world and find out about it.
But you have done that. You've reached out to people
yeah,
to help you learn different things.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely.
You've flown to other states to educate yourself about different things.
Yeah.
And we're not talking about college. I mean, this is recently. I mean, you investigate different things.
Yeah.
And part of that is just being an artist, I think, also, because it goes back to what I'm saying, is just a curiosity to know what's possible.
Yeah.
And you do that, and that's part of I think your total. That's one of the major ingredients, I think, of all your successes. Is to keep digging and finding out what's possible.
Yeah,
You've really done that.
Yeah, well, I love that. Have you tried these Posca pans? They're just awesome.
No, you say it like it's a food item.
It kind of is.
Oh, well, tasty. What do they call Posca pans?
Posca pans, yeah.
Posca pans.
Posca pans. They were from Japan originally.
Why, thank you. I don't mind if I do.
And they, aren't they great?
Yeah, these are juicy.
Yeah, totally.
These are very juicy.
I'm about to sand on this, and one of the things around clarity, what I like to do to gain clarity is I like to just mess it all up. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Lose the thread utterly, go to the country, take 3 weeks off and be in Morocco and just just whatever, just go into a place you've never been. And that's incredibly clarifying. When you're outside of the thing, you're outside of your life, and then you look back on it.
I just wrote down a quote for a mutual friend of ours, Miss Carrie, and it was a quote because it was a card I was going to give to her about because she had moved into a new place, and you and her both shared, like, you guys have traveled more than any two people I know, and have been to more places. And but with her, this quote really seemed to fit because, she always, like you, wonders and questions and wants to know things. And part of that, I think, her travels have given her answers. But the quote has to do with something about traveling the world, but coming back home and finding the answer. Mm-hmm. You have to go out, and then you come back, and you get your answers. But it doesn't have to be literal travel.
Right.
I mean, when you talk about messing things up, it could be right here. You and I shared our favorite teacher from our art school.
Oh, you guys, this guy. Well, Dwight Harmon. We should just go down this little rabbit hole.
Let's go down.
Tribute to this man. I would not be sitting here doing what I'm doing, having this conversation. His name was Dwight Harmon. He taught at Art Center College of Design, and actually, this is what we did in his class. We would show up. He would sit in the front of the room, and he had a fishing tackle box full of art supplies, just like this. And we were all sitting there, and we would make art like this and have conversations. And we would roam around the world he was just a visionary thought guy. And we'd talk about books, we'd talk about sex, we'd talk about whatever the thing. It was everything.
Our class did not talk about sex.
Really? Yes.
Oh, actually, we did.
Yeah.
Wait,
yeah.
we did.
Yeah.
Because we were talking about relationships.
And he would paint.
But he would paint. Well, actually, it's exactly like what you said. It's what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
He would talk to us with everybody crowded around him while he was talking about different subjects. But this goes back to what you were saying about messing things up. So he'd be making something, and he'd start making paintings of, like, he gave me one. He invited me to his studio once, and
God, that's so cool. I never got to go.
are you serious?
Yeah, I never saw it.
I went twice.
Wow.
So I just gave him
Teacher's pet.
Well, so I once gave him a booklet of cartoons I made.
What?
And he goes, well,
do you still have it?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I have a copy.
Oh my God.
No, I gave him cartoons, but I have a copy of them.
Were they your cartoons?
Yeah.
Oh, you were trying to do
A cartoon strip.
Cartoon strip.
Yes, because when I was
remember
like
that.
15, a girl I went to school with, her father was his cartoon strip. Mama was in newspapers all over the world, and so
Yeah, I remember that one.
And he had invited me to his studio when I was like, I just gotten my driver's license, and or my permit, and he said, just come spend the day with, because his daughters showed my cartoons in the high school newspaper, and he said, well, tell this kid to come to my studio.
Oh my God.
And so I just spent the day there, and the outcome of it was him saying like, you need to do a cartoon strip and sell it. And I said, I reminded him that I was still going through puberty. And he said, that doesn't matter. I sold my first cartoon when I was 16 years old.
Oh.
So of course, I went home immediately and made more cartoons. Where was I going with that?
You were saying that you gave it to Dwight.
Yes, so I gave him some of those. And so Dwight says, well, you gave me something, now I need to give you a piece of art too. So he said, come to my studio. And because, I don't know if he did this in your class, but he would always draw devils, and he would say, well, here's another picture of mom. But I know that he loved his mom.
Yeah,
It was a bad joke that he always made. And everybody would be laughing because he talked always so lovingly about his mom and his brother. And so I chose one of his devil paintings where it's like 6 beautiful like images that he really implements so much of what you implement, and is just, well, all right, so making a mess. He would be making a painting and you're like, oh, that's beautiful. That's just so, like, I hope to be able to do that one day. And while he's like in the middle of the painting, he'll gently totally like put down some color, like you think he's really, thoughtfully doing something. And then he's like,
yeah, right.
He would do that. And then he would totally do that, and he would make sounds. But then he would go back in, and he would be like, he'd be making sense of, this beautiful mess.
Yeah.
And it would throw you completely. But the beauty of this human being, of always reminding his students that to jump right in, to make a mess.
Yeah.
And he once said to me, perfection and I are not very good friends.
Oh,
and that's
so good.
That really, stayed with me.
I loved how it was literally art and life. His class was art and life.
It was. We didn't know it at the time.
No, I know.
We did not know.
And
what do you take from that from him?
Well,
he did this a lot. Pardon me for interrupt. But he'd be like, he'd start moving his hands in the air, like he was
that's right.
Like he was trying to bring in other sources of spirits or something.
Like call the
spirits. Uh-huh. Call the sirens.
Which it's kind of what art is, like what the hell? How am I making this? And who's doing this here?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, it was so good. What I got from it was, because what he showed me was he was the first guy to really appreciate. I remember I did some pictures and it's kind of like how I'm working now. I was sanding and I was layering and doing all this stuff. And I had a design class with this guy, and we were supposed to do these little painting things. And then I was doing them for Dwight as well. And I showed the design guy, I forget his name, And he looked at the colors, which were kind of like this, like all the colors were in all the colors, and everything was like messy and layered. And this teacher said, yeah, well, that's not really like pure color you got there. You're not really
I know who this
like
teacher
deciding.
was.
Do you?
Yeah, I'm not going to say it, though. I'll tell you later.
I don't remember the guy, but it really affected me. It was like...
Did his last name begin with an S?
I don't remember.
An ST?
I don't even remember the guys. I don't even remember who this was, but
Okay.
I showed these to Dwight, and he was like, because they were vague, they weren't clear. And he, talk about clarity. This other teacher wanted like, well, make it green, make it blue, but I'm like, it's not like, I liked the fact that it was kind of mushy and everything. And Dwight was like, oh, this is, now you're getting somewhere. And they weren't that good, but I think he saw in me that I was groping around on the bottom in the dark, and he welcomed that. He encouraged that inquiry. Down low, down deep.
Yeah.
He did this thing, you guys, that was just, I have to tell it because it was so incredible.
What?
He, every day he would, every semester, remember, he'd put the paint on his head? Yeah.
Well, he put it in his mouth.
He put it in his mouth, yeah. So what he would do is he would take, and it was magenta, it was this. Well, it wasn't exactly this, but he always used pink, at least that's what I saw him do it. And we'd hear about this guy. This is this amazing class, and you're like a newbie, and you go in there, and there's 30 kids, and he did this thing. He goes, listen, you guys, you're just don't know anything, and you're not taking chances, and you got to live better. He just really encouraged people to like go out on the skinny branches of what they're involved in. And he would say, like, for example, like, who would give me $5 if I took this paint and I squirted it on my head right here, right now? Who would do that? And people were all like laughing, like, no way. And he goes, no, seriously, and then, who would do it?
But then there's a video of it, and you see on the video people starting to put down some $1 bills. And then somebody, he looks at it, and he's like, well, that's not enough. And then you see a hand come through the crowd of students, and Dwight says, where did that come from?
Where did that come from? Is that one person's $10? Now, all right, whose other dollar is it? Okay, get ready. Everybody ready? Hold on.
And the class was just, they had lost it. I mean, they're like looking at this man who they were thinking, what has happened to Dwight?
When he did it in my class, he was bald, this guy, or didn't have a lot of hair. I think he was bald.
Yes, and he was bald, and he said, I don't need a hair blower.
Yeah. He took pink magenta, and he started squirting it on top of his head, and then he squirted it down his face, down his nose, and then he put it all in his mouth, and he had that fishing kit with all his art supplies, and he took a toothbrush, and he brushed his teeth with magenta.
Yes.
Yeah, so good. But I think what he was doing, he was just blowing out what we, like, you don't have to just stay inside the guardrails of your life, right? Like,
that's such a good way to put it.
Right? I remember, Tom Stanley. Tom Stanley, we'll put his name in the show notes. Amazing artist. We were at school at the same time. And this is the thing about artists. They're willing to entertain different ways of being, which is what I just love them so much. We were down there visiting once, and this is when my daughters were quite young. They were like 6 and 8, and we're having lunch with Tom Stanley, and he's pretty eccentric, and he would draw these little piggy creatures, and he just, he had a whole world. He was just a brilliant guy. And I remember the kids...
Well, he still is.
Still. But I mean, he was so irreverent, and the kids loved him because it was like, what's Tom going to do next? And we're in this restaurant, and he was eating a toasted jam or something, and there was a fly in the restaurant, and it landed on the toast. And most people would be like, you just throw the damn thing away. I mean, flies are like breeders of the worst kind of all the things. I mean, I know people like this. They're so scared of germs. If someone drops something on the ground, you don't eat it. Or a restaurant, a fork falls on the ground, and
That has never been you.
It's never been me. I'm just like, I'll eat down there. I don't care. But Tom took good another level. My kids are looking at this like the fly is stuck on I think it was peanut butter. It's stuck on it. And the girls are like, oh my God, oh my God. And he looks over at him and he just takes this big bite. He just ate it. He just ate the fly and the peanut butter. And I never forgot it, you know?
What did the girls do?
They were just, they were on the floor. They couldn't believe it. But it wakes you up to what's possible, or to at least like maybe I think of the world differently, you know, and I think this, relating it to clarity, what we think's possible for us, we sometimes aren't the best candidates to know all what's possible. We need the help of others to see what's possible. That's why you were looking at the obituaries, you know, which kind of leads into this idea that we need each other. We need people to show us, you know.
And this actually leads back to Art2Life, because this is the community that you've created. You've created a community where we can exchange ideas. And
show each other what's possible.
Right.
And
have it be a safe place.
Yeah. If we all understand that we're trying things and we're trying them on for size, and you know, it's not like we're trying to prove something. It doesn't come from an ego place. It comes from a thirst for living an aesthetic life, for being fully alive. This is what comes from being like that. That's the natural outcome of it, you know.
Absolutely.
How's your art over there going?
Well, it's happening right along.
All right.
You know?
We kind of have similar colors going. I might be influenced by you.
Oh, yes. Wait, do you remember, well, we've influenced each other over the years, but we should tell the story about back in the illustration days, you made...
When you copied me, yeah.
I totally copied you. I did not copy you, but you drew a painting of a character with a hat.
Yeah, with all the stuff in the hat.
Stuff on top. And then I totally copied that idea. And then from that, I made a card of it and I sent it to clients. I know I must have gotten at least 7 different jobs where they're like, oh yeah, can we do that?
Oh, you're kidding.
Can we have a hat with a whole bunch of stuff?
Yeah, right.
Totally did.
Yeah, that was a good.
But then you once did a painting. I think you gave it to me for my 40th, like 23 years ago.
6 years ago, yeah.
Yeah, sure. And it was, you said you made it because you were thinking about a painting that I had.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I don't.
Oh.
To be totally honest, I don't totally remember.
Yeah.
I remember doing something like that, but I don't remember which painting exactly.
Well, I have it. It's at home.
That's so great.
Anyway.
So the takeaway, right? Like, you're not going to get clarity on the first go. Clarity comes from inhalation, from exhalation, from trying a thing, adjusting,
investigation,
inquiry.
Yeah. Investigation.
Yeah. But it doesn't come from trying to think your way through it.
No.
No.
You literally have to begin physically making stuff.
And isn't it curious that making things, and this is what I love about art, but anything, making something, going through a ritual of, is this right? Is this good? Is this in or is this out? Is this in? It's this curation, discernment,
this is out.
The practice of discernment, that's out. All these, is this in, is this out? That is clarifying.
Yeah.
Because we're learning what it is that is in.
Right.
And if we take away most of the things that aren't in, what remains is powerful.
There you go.
It's the Marie Kondo approach to art.
It's the Marie Kondo way of art. Yes, that's what you're teaching now.
Yeah. Well, she copied me.
Yeah, of course she did. Oh, totally, yes. Yeah,
okay.
But that is it.
Yeah. Clarity is just the crap taken out so we can see better the important thing, the thing we care about. We've minimized the things.
But it's not just art.
It's not at all just art.
It's life.
Right. I think you have to be in this in your life in order to make the thing, of course, the creator has to be having the clarity, but for the art to become clear, to become powerful,
Right.
you know?
Totally.
How are you gluing down? Do you have a glue stick?
A glue stick. Yes. Definitely.
Well, listen, this has been great and so awesome to talk to you about this.
Always. It's always been that. You and I have always had that blessing between us.
Yeah, and it was really fun to share this with you guys today. I'm going to put links in the show notes to Noah Wood's Instagram. What is it? Just say it real quick so we...
Please, I would love to hear from people. Noah Woods __.
Okay.
Noah Woods __.
We might want to do an episode on promotion techniques. All right, man.
That's why it hasn't happened.
No, I won't worry about that. Thanks so much, and
Thank you
guys.
for asking me.
Yeah, no, it's been
This was
so
such
fun.
Always.
And we made some art, which is pretty
We did.
You guys, thanks for being here, and super appreciate you. And we'll see you on the next episode. I think I'm going to do more of this art-making conversations.
This
really
was a
great.
blast.
You get a conversation, but then you get the artifact of the conversation.
I know. I'll trade.
We had a similar conversation. Maybe we should trade.
Okay.
All right, guys. See you later.